Friends, if you want to watch super hit movie Wrath of Man in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Friends, in today's video, the movie we're going to talk about is called Wrath of Man. We will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it, all the interesting facts about this movie in today's video. I'm going to tell you. I'm also going to give you all the information on which OT platform or on which satellite channel you will watch this movie. Also, we will talk in detail about the technical department, music department, pre-production filming, post-production, budget, box office collection of this film. We will also talk about the story of this film, and I will also give you a small review of the story of this film. Apart from this, we will discuss about the facts of this film's storyline, star cast actors' performance in the film, and which character has played which role. That's why I request you, friends, to watch this video till the end, so start the video. Wrath of Man is a 2021 action thriller film directed by Guy Ritchie, who co-wrote it with Ivan Atkinson and Marn Davies. It is loosely based on the 2004 French film Cash Truck. It is Ritchie's fourth directorial collaboration with lead actor Jason Statham, and the first since Revolver, 2005. Holt McCallany, Jeffrey Donovan, Chris Riley, Josh Hartnett, Laz Alonso, Raul Castillo, Dobia Opere, Eddie Marsan, and Scott Eastwood appear in supporting roles. In the film, Statham is a new cash truck driver in Los Angeles, whose thwarting of a robbery leads to his skill set with guns and mysterious past being questioned. Wrath of Man was released in several countries on April 22, 2021, and in the United States on May 7th. Despite receiving mixed reviews from critics, the film grossed $104 million worldwide. Plot: the story opens in Los Angeles, California, where an armored truck robbery leaves 2 guards and a bystander dead, which sets off a series of events told in 4 acts. A dark spirit. 5 months after the opening scene's robbery, Patrick Hill joins Fortico Security as an armored truck guard. His manager, Terry, commends his references, and company trainer Bullet nicknames him H. Hill barely passes firearm training and gets off to a rocky start with his colleagues, including Boy Sweat, Dave, and Dana Curtis. During a pickup, Bullet is taken hostage, and Hill convinces a panicked Dave to comply with the robbers before he disposes of the entire crew with expert marksmanship and merciless efficiency. Hill is questioned by FBI agents investigating the first robbery. The FBI investigators bring their suspicions about Hill to their superior, Agent King, who tells them to leave Hill alone. Hill receives a dossier of Fortico employee files and an autopsy report from the opening scene's murder. 3 months later, Hill and Bullet become the targets of a new heist. They are waylaid in their truck in Chinatown, but the robbers flee at the sight of Hill. Hill continues to investigate his co-workers, and they become increasingly suspicious of him. Scorched Earth. The act opens as a flashback. 5 months before joining Fortico on the day of the opening scene's robbery, Hill is present with his son Dougie. Revealed to be a thief himself who was working with a robbery crew, Hill grudgingly agrees to monitor an armored truck's route, leaving Dougie in the car. A different group of robbers hijacks the truck and spots Dougie. Hill races back to his son and watches as Dougie is murdered before he is also shot and left for dead. 3 weeks later, Hill wakes up in the hospital and meets with Agent King, who gives him a list of suspects and agrees to temporarily turn a blind eye. Hill is revealed to be Mason Hargreaves, a notorious crime lord. He is promised that he will be allowed to avenge Dougie's death and summarily kill the robbers if he can bring down all of them at once. Accordingly, and determined to find Dougie's killer, Hargreaves and his men, led by Mike, Brendan, and Moggy, kill nearly every thief on King's list of known armored truck burglars without results. Mike voices his concerns about retaliation, and Hargreaves agrees to lay low in London, but actually lied. He instead assumes the identity of Patrick Hill and joins Fortico to continue the hunt alone. It was Hargreaves' own crew who attempted the Chinatown robbery until Mike recognized Hargreaves. Bad Animals Bad. Sometime before the opening scene's robbery, a group of disgruntled Afghanistan veterans, Carlos, Sam, Brad, Tom, Jan, and their former Sergeant Jackson Isley, decide to become thieves. Their first robbery results in $110,000. With help from an unidentified guard who served under Jackson, they decide to pull off a more ambitious heist of an armored truck. This robbery is the robbery seen at the start of the film. During this Fortico heist, Jan needlessly shoots station-needed the guards, as well as Dougie and Hargreaves. Hargreaves, as he is shot, sees Jan's face. Liver, lungs, spleen, and heart. 5 months later, the veterans reunite to steal over $150 million from the Fortico facility on Black Friday weekend. Bullet, still believing Hargreaves' cover story, reveals to Hargreaves that he is Jackson's inside man. This connects him to the murder and confirms Hargreaves' suspicions that he helped kill Dougie, threatening him into cooperating. The crew takes the depot hostage, but an alarm is triggered. During the chaos, the hostages from the Fortico staff revolt and mortally wound Jackson. The gang, including Bullet, then slaughters the majority of the Fortico staff, though Hargreaves manages to kill all of the robbery crew except Jan, Bullet, and Jackson. The three escape, but in greed, ultimately all attempt to turn on each other at once, with Jan murdering the other two. At home, Jan finds a phone in one of the money bags planted by Hargreaves to track its location. When Hargreaves calls it, Hargreaves confronts him with Dougie's autopsy report and slowly reads it aloud. Dougie was shot in the liver, both lungs, the spleen, and finally in his heart. In his final act of vengeance, Hargreaves reciprocates each wound, shooting him in the same parts of the body that Jan shot Dougie. Abandoning the money, Hargreaves tells King his task is done and drives away. Cast: Jason Statham as Patrick H. Hill, a new guard for Fortico with surgical accuracy and a mysterious past. Holt McCallany as Hayden Bullet Blair, a Fortico guard. Scott Eastwood as Jan. Jeffrey Donovan as Sergeant Elvis Jackson. Josh Hartnett as Boy Sweat Dave Hancock, a Fortico guard. Eddie Marsan as Terry, a Fortico manager. Daryl Da Silva as Mike. Babs Olusanmoken as Maggie. Laz Alonso as Carlos. Raul Castillo as Sam. Jobio Pare as Brad. Chris Riley as Tom. In addition, Andy Garcia appears in a cameo role as FBI Agent King. Musician Post Malone appears as a truck robber. Comedian Rob Delaney also makes an appearance as Fortico's CEO. Blake Halls. Eli Brown appears briefly as Dougie, whose murder sets the plot in motion. Additionally, Alex Ferns, Neam Algar, and Tag Murphy appear respectively as Fortico guards Sticky John Williams, Dana Curtis, and Shirley Davies. Production. Development. In October 2019, Guy Ritchie was announced as writing and directing an English-language remake of the 2004 film Cash Truck, with Jason Statham set to star. Holt McCallany joined later in the month. Filming began in November between Los Angeles and London, with Scott Eastwood, Jeffrey Donovan, Laz Alonso, Josh Hartnett, and Niam Algar added to the cast, and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer taking on distribution for the U.S., Latin America, Scandinavia, the Philippines, and Hong Kong to the film. In January 2020, Raul Castillo was added to the cast. Christopher Benstead, who previously worked with the director on The Gentleman, composed the film score. Sony Classical released the soundtrack on May 7, 2021, coinciding with the film's release. Release. The film was released internationally in several countries, beginning on April 22, 2021, including Russia and Australia. It was later released in the United States on May 7, 2021. The film was originally set for release in the United States on January 15th, but was delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It was later rescheduled for April 23rd before being delayed 2 weeks later. The film was released in China on May 10th. In the United Kingdom, the film was originally going to be released by the British arm of Lionsgate. The film was ultimately released, though, straight to streaming as an Amazon exclusive on Prime Video on the 10th of December 2021. The film was released on Blu-ray and DVD on July 13, 2021 by Warner Bros., Home Entertainment, Studio Distribution Services, and MGM Home Entertainment, and was later released on Ultra HD Blu-ray on January 17, 2023 by Shout Studios. The film was added to Paramount Plus on March 23, 2022. Reception. Box office. Wrath of Man grossed $27.5 million in the United States and Canada, and $76.5 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $104 million. In the U.S., the film was released alongside Here Today and made $3 million from 2,875 theaters on its first day of release, including $500,000 from Thursday night previews. It went on to debut to $8.1 million, topping the box office. Men made up 60% of the overall audience, with 72% being over the age of 25. In its second weekend, the film dropped 55% to $3.7 million, finishing second behind newcomer Spiral. In the film's opening weekend in Australia, it grossed $1.34 million. It also made $201,000 in New Zealand and $3.79 million in Russia. In its third weekend of international release, the film made $13.5 million, as well as $18.5 million in its Chinese opening weekend. A star vehicle for Jason Statham at his meanest, Wrath of Man is one of Guy Ritchie's best directed movies, and one of his most surprising, at least in terms of style and tone. Gone is the jumpy, busy, lighthearted, buzzed bloke in a pub telling you a tale vibe of film like Snatch, Rock and Rolla, The Man from UNCLE, King Arthur, and the like. In its place is voluptuous darkness, so sinister that you may wonder if its main character is the devil himself. This character is named Patrick H. Hill, one letter removed from hell. His co-workers at Los Angeles Fortico Armored Car Company call him H, which sets him up to be sort of a Kafka character, a nearly nameless cog in a societal machine. H is a rookie on the job. He reads as a surly, socially inept, uncommunicative lump. He barely passes the driving and shooting tests, and his resting face is somewhere between brooding and seething. But his supervisor Bullet, Holt McCallany, hires him anyway because beggars can't be choosers. Morale has been low ever since a daylight heist became a bloody public shootout that claimed multiple lives, including 2 Fortico guards. Adapted from the 2004 French film Le Convoyeur, a.k.a. Cash Truck, and borrowing the basic outline of the story, Wrath of Man is a time-shifting neo-noir crime thriller filled with tough, sometimes violent men. Gangsters and former combat veterans, mostly with a smattering of security guards and cops. Ritchie and co-screenwriters Ivan Atkinson and Marn Davies suggest that H could belong to any of those groups, or might be something else entirely. We instantly suspect he's not the man he claims to be, even if we haven't seen the trailer. In H's very first scene, somebody says his name, and he replies a half-second later than he should. Then the film lets a couple of major characters suspect the same thing, and then a couple more, until it becomes a regular topic of discussion at Fortico, along with jokes about somebody on the team being an inside man for armored car robbers, which seems plausible, given how often their trucks are attacked. From there until a third of the way through the story, Ritchie and Statham treat H as a blank screen upon which the imagination can project scenarios. We wonder who H really is and what he actually wants. And we wonder whether his precise response to another heist, shooting a bushel of robbers single-handedly while crooks use Bullet as human shield, and H's partner Boy Sweat Dave, Josh Hartnett, sits in the driver's seat of the armored car, paralyzed with fear, is a harbinger of heroic deeds to come, or the opening salvo in an inside man strategy that will reveal H as a monster of greed and bloodlust. Then the movie takes us to a different time and place, and then 15 minutes later to another time and place, and then another, always giving us additional information about H that will likely negate whatever take you had. This is less of a self-consciously clever Quentin Tarantino Guy Ritchie maneuver, and more in the poker-faced, unironic spirit of classic older films that inspired them, like The Killing and The Killers and Criss Cross. Another armored car-focused crime thriller remade by Steven Soderbergh as The Underneath. To avoid disclosing twists that delighted me, even when in retrospect I should have seen them coming, let's say that each narrative shift, heralded by a white-on-black chapter title, widens the movie's focus until it becomes a panorama of sleaze and cruelty, democratically distributing its attention among a roster of men with faces that Humphrey Bogart could have punched. It's not a spoiler to say that H has a personal reason for what he's doing at Fortico, and that every one of his actions, no matter how seemingly ill-advised, contributes to his mission. Whether he's baiting a coworker at a bar, threatening another employee at gunpoint into answering some questions, or staring just a bit too long at the wall of ID badges where Fortico employees clock in and out. His cell phone's ringtone is a sample from Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries, and there's zero indication that H picked it because he thought it was funny. He looks like a guy who laughed 4 times in the 1990s and decided it wasn't for him. There's a touch of Clint Eastwood's hero as horror movie stalker characters in the film's presentation of H, the ones that gave the mayhem in Dirty Harry, High Plains Drifter, and Pale Rider a bitter aftertaste. He's never really happy unless he's torturing or killing somebody that he thinks deserves to suffer pain, but even then, he doesn't seem happy. He seems driven by a code and a sense of duty rather than by the raw emotions he ought to be feeling, based on what we come to know about him. The Eastwood vibe is so strong that it makes the decision to cast Eastwood's son Scott as a snotty psycho named Jan seem like critical commentary on cinema history. Ritchie might be the first director to find something uniquely malignant in the younger Eastwood's screen presence, which is reminiscent of his dad in the pre-spaghetti Western era before he figured out how to be a star. Jan oozes fratty entitlement, and his smirky, gum-chewing, rebel without a grievance shallowness is central to his vileness. He's the kind of crook who is specifically warned not to buy anything expensive after a heist, then gets himself a loft apartment and a $28,000 bike and seems offended when a colleague calls him out. He's just one more snake in the snake pit. There are 3, maybe 4 major characters in this film that you'd briefly consider saving from a house fire. H and John aren't on the list, nor are Boy Sweat Dave or the ex-mercenaries Carlos, Laz Alonso, Sam, Raul Castillo, and Jackson, Jeffrey Donovan, whose decadent Mercury astronaut handsomeness is chef's kiss perfect, or a mysterious law enforcement bigwig known only as the King, Andy Garcia, who finds out that H is tearing through the underworld and decides to stand back and let him do his thing. "Let the painter paint," he says, echoing one of the most quoted lines from the similarly nasty thriller Man on Fire, describing its vigilante hero. Creasy's art is death, and he's about to paint his masterpiece. If there's a problem with the movie, it's that the blood painter H is so mesmerizing, the kind of driven, merciless anti-hero who keeps you guessing as to whether he even has a soul to lose, that whenever Wrath of Man leaves him to flesh out the other characters, they can't measure up because their badness is too legible. They want money, they want respect, they're bored and need something to do, etc. They don't enter the room and bring the smell of sulfur with them, like H. You need just the right actor for such an innately ludicrous part. Statham is it. He's always been a more versatile and game-leading man than his lad movie resume might indicate. Whether he's clowning it up in Spy, playing wisecracking Ahab to a giant prehistoric shark in The Meg, or embarking on a blood-soaked spiritual odyssey in Ritchie's shoot-'em-up parable Revolver, he's always got that economical, old Hollywood movie star work ethic, giving viewers the information they need at the moment when they need it. There aren't many adjectives in his acting here. It's a nouns and verbs star turn, like Eastwood and Charles Bronson in Sergio Leone's westerns, and Takeshi Kitano in his pre-millennia Yakuza pictures. When H's office manager, Terry, Eddie Marsan, says the new guy is colder than a reptile, it seems like an understatement. Ritchie and cinematographer Alan Stewart amplify Statham's choices by treating his shaved dome and wood-carved face as sinister art objects, hiding his eyes in shadow as H processes bad news and giving his noggin the Colonel Kurtz Globe of Doom treatment. More so than any other Ritchie film, you feel the presence of evil in this one, in the capital E, mythological or biblical sense, soul-rotting and innocence-killing, not bad guy does bad things while laughing. It's not a horror film, but it's horror film adjacent. There's even a shot from the point of view of a man in riot gear on a killing spree, his labored breathing amplified by plexiglass and rubber. You could show Wrath of Man as part of a double feature with Ritchie's Revolver. In one, Statham plays a morally compromised character whose endangered soul might still be saved. In the other, he plays a man who's so far past that point that the affront that triggers his rampage plays less as an inexplicable catastrophe than as karmic payback for the toxic energy he's pumped into the world. Composer Christopher Benstead backs the film's prowling and plan-making with a minor-key, 7-note theme that would be perfect for shots of Godzilla's dorsal fins cutting through waves. It's a brilliant bit of scoring that expresses a truth about H better than dialogue could. When Ritchie cuts to helicopter shots of armored trucks and getaway vehicles driving from point A to point B, Benstead's motif repeats with variations until it seems like an incantation summoning dark forces. Ritchie's direction suits the movie's stripped-down, practically elemental energy. As is always the case in a Ritchie picture, there's some magisterial cross-cutting by James Herbert, but it never feels busy or showy. It's more about the inevitability, fatefulness even, of the forces that these characters have unleashed. The final third is one of those tour de force adventures in heist exposition where the exposition and the heist are folded together. And the movie keeps cutting from toy vehicles on a diorama to real ones on the street. But the most memorable scenes are shot rather plainly by Ritchie standards, often in a single take, the camera gliding from character to character as they move through spaces and talk. It's fun to watch a maximalist pare back like this, keeping it simple except when he needs to be a wizard who's everywhere at once. The completeness and sureness of the movie's aesthetic is a joy to behold, even when the images capture human beings doing savage things. You don't really root for anyone in this film. They are criminals engaged in contests of will. But the film is not a value-neutral exercise. There is an undertone of lament to a lot of the violent action. Every character made their bed and must lie it. More often than not, it's a deathbed. Guy Ritchie is a filmmaker I oddly find myself rooting for. I find that he's constantly straining against being pigeonholed, and yet he also loves his stylish attitude in worlds filled with criminals. I can't discount bizarre blockbusters like King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, or the terrific spy flick The Man from UNCLE. However, his 2019 film The Gentleman felt like a step backwards for Ritchie, as if he was trying to reclaim the irreverent gangster flicks that he made his name on, and instead appearing as if he had missed a step. That's why his latest, Wrath of Man, feels so refreshing. It's still in the mold of other Ritchie crime flicks, but it's angry, volatile, unsparing, and brutal. Don't go looking for colorful supporting characters or farcical misunderstandings. Instead, Wrath of Man is cold and bloody while still retaining its thrills. Patrick H. Hill, Jason Statham, is a former private security worker who takes a new job at an armored car company 3 months after the company was robbed and 2 of its guards were killed. H likes to keep to himself, but appears to have a watchful eye towards his co-workers. When his truck is attacked, rather than follow protocol and hand over the money, H guns down the thieves with surgical precision. This response startles his fellow guards, but earns H a promotion in the company. However, as the story unfolds, it becomes clear H is not a typical guard, and he didn't take this job because he needed the work. To say any more than that would be to spoil the twists that keep coming after the first act. However, even here, you can see Ritchie's signature as he circles back on his timeline, loops around, and intersects with various groups of criminals. The key difference is that there are no fun criminals here. Typically, Ritchie likes to throw in guys who are out of their depth or are feigning toughness, or that their toughness is colored by an irreverent attitude. Ritchie, in his screenplay with Marn Davies and Ivan Atkinson, strips all that away and goes straight for the jugular in a film where there are no characters to really root for. It's bad people, and slightly less bad people, and bystanders. Some may not have the appetite for this kind of film, but I'm impressed that Ritchie chose to go there, and it kept me on my toes throughout the film's runtime. What's most impressive about Wrath of Man is how it discards everything familiar after the end of the first act. In the first act, you think you know what this movie is, and it's going to go into the canon of Jason Statham murders everybody, and even if it were only that film, I would kind of be okay with it. Ritchie directs it with such a brooding, somber approach that it doesn't feel like another Mechanic or Transporter. It's still Statham doing what we expect from Statham, being tough, stylish, and physically domineering, but then twisting expectations to the point where Ritchie is willing to straight up ask us, is this type, this familiar character we've grown to love from this actor, a total sociopath? It makes for an odd yet intriguing blend of B-movie thrills combined with some surprising darkness that keeps expanding throughout the narrative. There are times when the whole enterprise threatens to fall apart, like with the stilted dialogue. There are some groan-worthy lines, especially early on, and how the film seems to restart with each new chapter. Chapters that have titles like A Dark Spirit and Bad Animals Bad. And yet this construction and tone keeps Wrath of Man interesting. It feels like Ritchie challenging himself in a way that he didn't with The Gentleman, and given how dark the film goes, I had to keep chuckling to myself when I remembered that Ritchie also directed a live-action remake of Disney's Aladdin. This may not be Ritchie's best movie or his most memorable, but it doesn't feel like more of the same. Some may not go for the brutality on display here, and others may wonder why Ritchie drained the color that made his earlier crime films such hits. But taking that leap speaks to a director who has found confidence in what he's doing and doesn't need to replay those hits. There's an underlying attitude in Wrath of Man that Ritchie doesn't seem to particularly care if you like this one. And that will probably end up relegating it to the tier of his lesser-known crime movies like Revolver and Rock'n'Rolla. But, and I fully admit this may be me on the incline, I'm so happy to be back in theaters that I'm grading on a curve approach, I still found Wrath of Man captivating, even though it's far from comforting. It's a film that shows Ritchie still has some tricks up his sleeve. Review. Wrath of Man. The making of Jason Statham, from wheeler dealer to swimmer to model to actor to movie star, is owed in rather overwhelmingly large part to writer-director Guy Ritchie, who plucked him out of a French Connection campaign and into his first two films. Magnetic turns in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch paved the way for an unlikely yet robust career as a throwback action antihero, punching, shooting, and wisecracking his way from DTV fare all the way up to blockbusting franchises. At the same time, Ritchie had made a similar leap away from the laddish gangster capers that made him, and instead taking charge of studio tentpoles like The Man from U.N.C.L.E., King Arthur, and Sherlock Holmes, Two Boys Done Good, at least when it came to their bank balances. But the simultaneously steep ascents came at a price. Statham's shtick, often brilliantly subverted for comic effect, see Spy, was also wearing thin when broadened out, see The Meg. While Ritchie's initial vigor had dulled with each project bigger than the last, with the anyone could have directed this anonymity of Aladdin feeling like a tipping point. His follow-up 2020's uneven comedy The Gentleman was an attempt to revisit former glories, yet with a slicker skill set. And there's a similar marriage of grit and gloss with his latest bullish action thriller Wrath of Man, reuniting him with the Stath, an actor in need of more distinctive and distinguished direction. It's therefore an apt time for them to be working together again, and while a bit threadbare, the film acts as a jolting return to form for them both. A propulsive exploitation pick that should also continue a winning streak of crowd-alluring B-movies that have helped U.S. cinemas crawl back to normality in the last month. The giddy thrills of Godzilla vs. Kong and the silly schlock of Mortal Kombat have both hit big, proving that audiences will return en masse if there's a visceral reason for them to do so. There should be a similar roar of approval meeting Wrath of Man, a refreshing reminder of what a real movie actually looks like after over a year of flatly produced streaming guff, especially noticeable within the action genre. It's a remake of the 2004 French film Cash Truck, telling a simple story in an often overly convoluted way, as if Tarantino was tasked with structuring a Liam Neeson thriller. A mysterious new employee known as H, Statham, starts working for an armed vehicle company, transporting money and goods from one place to the other, a job that he's quickly told makes him less predator and more prey. But after H disrupts an attempted robbery, killing all those who dared in the process, it becomes clear that he's not just some hired hand. H has a mission, an avenging angel whose son was murdered by a gunman whose name he's still searching for, a bloody, single-minded quest that's about to bring hell to the streets of Los Angeles. Despite its biblical title, 2-hour length, unconventional timeline, and laughably high-minded chapter breaks, Wrath of Man is actually far more pedestrian than Ritchie seems to think it is. Akin to most other January action movies released post-Taken, it was in fact originally scheduled for that very month, a sturdy, violent, and formulaic piece of pulp that works in the moment but fades soon after. It's a fairly straightforward story of revenge, of a father striking back against those who harmed his family, a tale as old as time, albeit told with more effectiveness than usual. There's a confident swagger to it, but also a refreshing lack of smugness, Ritchie choosing to mostly avoid knowing comic touches and focus on the unfurling, furious horror of it all, amped up by Christopher Benstead's dark, dominant score and Jimmy Boyle's unsettling sound design. A reined-in Statham does what he does with brisk efficiency and an adept physicality. But one wonders what an actor with more depth might have brought to the role of grieving father, whether the flashes of pain would have cut a little deeper had they been delivered with more than just a scowl. He's mercifully allowed to play a Brit, but Ritchie has surrounded him with so many of his fellow countrymen using ungainly American accents that some of the more dialogue-heavy scenes have a strange, otherworldly nature. It reminded me of that line in The Thing when Kurt Russell ponders what would happen if a human was left alone with just imitators, the feeling the native actors must have had during parts of production. It's unnecessarily jarring, yet all of them without fail prove more believable than a hammy Scott Eastwood as one of the bad guys, stumbling into the film with all the subtlety of someone arriving late from the set of a daytime soap. It's never exactly dull, but it is a tad too long, with arguably a flashback too many for a film this simple. This is not the labyrinthine thriller it so wants to be, revealing too much while also giving us an ending that misses an important logistical beat, stretching incredulity just a little too much. But Ritchie mostly moves his mixed bag of pieces around the board with flair, showcasing his well-rehearsed knack for gnarly violence and chaos, giving us a sinewy B-movie that warrants a watch on a screen bigger than the one in our homes, another welcome shot of adrenaline for us and for the industry. I'm craving my next dose already. The ending of Guy Ritchie's 2021 heist thriller Wrath of Man sees Jason Statham's H finding absolution. Statham, the beloved leading man and action star known for his iconic works such as Crank, 2006, Spy, 2015, The Meg, 2018, and the recent sleeper hit The Beekeeper, is in top form in Wrath of Man, a gripping story of revenge and greed. Wrath of Man's cast also features Josh Hartnett, Oppenheimer, Lucky Number Slevin, Holt McCallany, Mindhunter, Fight Club, and Scott Eastwood, The Fate of the Furious, Pacific Rim, Uprising, as the main antagonist Jan. Wrath of Man was the fourth feature film collaboration between Ritchie and Statham before their fifth movie together, Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre, which also stars Josh Hartnett, was released in 2023. After joining the armored cash truck service Fortico at the beginning of the film, Statham's H protagonist turns out to be a former heist man himself whose son, Dougie Eli Brown, is killed by an elite group of Army veterans turned cash truck robbers. Throughout Wrath of Man's 4 chapters, a dark spirit, scorched earth, bad animals, bad, and liver, lungs, spleen, and heart, H uncovers who was behind the death of his son and makes them pay. In the final moments of Wrath of Man, Jan is the sole survivor of the massive heist operation at the Fortico Depot on Black Friday. Even Holt McCallany's Bullet character, who was revealed to be the Fortico inside man that H had been looking for, ended up being betrayed by Jan at the last second. Bullet shot H at the depot before escaping with Jan and Jackson, Jeffrey Donovan, to the parking garage with the secret access tunnels. Ultimately, Jan kills Jackson, Bullet, and drives away with millions in an unsuspecting Prius. He believes he's gotten away with it all until he finds H sitting in his condo waiting to send him a final message. H throws the coroner's report of his son, Dougie, and has Jan read it aloud. The report explains the exact modes of death that Jan's bullets caused to Dougie's body, starting with his punctured liver, his collapsed lungs, his ruptured spleen, and a fatal shot through the heart. H wastes no time in replicating Dougie's method of death on Jan, shooting him in each of the 4 aforementioned vital organs in the same order that Jan had shot and killed Dougie. H emphasized a true eye for an eye strategy for revenge and justice on Jan and walked out of his condo without taking a cent of the stolen money. H is the nickname that Bullitt gives to Statham's character when he first starts working at Fortico under the guise of Patrick Hill, a former security guard. H's real identity is Mason Hargreaves, a notorious crime lord who is greatly revered. This is why during the second heist on a Fortico truck, when H took his mask off, the robbers were too afraid to shoot him and ran away. Mason Hargreaves proves himself to be incredibly powerful and resourceful, which is hinted at during a brief interrogation of his Fortico co-worker Dana, Naya Algar. Mason and his loyal crew, led by Mike, Daryl Da Silva, tried to torture and interrogate other crime lords to no avail, which is what inspired Mason to go undercover at Fortico as H. Just about every major character in Wrath of Man wound up dead by the end of the movie. H became the true last man standing after killing Jan, but was not interested in taking the prize money whatsoever. Leading up to the classic shoot-'em-up ending, H's Fortico co-workers, Shirley, Dana, Stewart, and Boy Sweat Dave, Hartnett, are all killed by Jackson's team of Jan, Bullitt, and the others. Bullitt coldly asked Stewart for a gun, making him think he was still his ally before shooting him and Dana point blank. He killed Boy Sweat Dave in a similar fashion before shooting H, but not killing him. Jackson, Bullitt, and Jan were the only thieves to get away before Jan killed both Jackson and Bullitt and took off with the money. Jason Statham's H takes no prisoners at the end of Wrath of Man, sending everyone who was involved in Dougie's death, particularly Jan, to an early grave. While it's unlikely that H or Mason Hargreaves will need to continue working as a Fortico agent in a potential Wrath of Man sequel, Mason is still one of the most powerful crime lords in the world at the end of the film. He has also made quite a few enemies on his path to uncovering who killed his son, which would set up some future retaliations from his new rivals. Although Mason is likely done with Fortico and armored trucks, there is an entire criminal underworld of possibilities that could expand his true character. Wrath of Man's ending offers the completion of a classic revenge tale of father and son, while also revealing just how powerful Statham's Mason character is. Mason kept true to his original claim that he had no interest in money and was only seeking to avenge Dougie, and pulled it off with careful planning and death-defying resilience despite getting shot several times. Mason, or H, became a dark spirit after losing his son, having nothing else to live for but to make Jan and his crew pay for taking away the most important thing in his life. By killing Jan the same way that he killed Dougie, Mason is able to level the playing field as much as possible. Now that Mason's elaborate revenge plan is complete, it's unclear what exactly he will make of his life. His relationship with his ex-wife and mother of Dougie is irreparably strained, and Mason may have a hard time finding purpose or enjoyment in anything for the rest of his life. In a potential Wrath of Man 2, Mason would likely have to lose someone else who is close to him in order to fit in with the first movie's themes of revenge. It's possible that someone who was above Jackson or a close friend of Jan's could come after Mason in a Wrath of Man sequel, and all the criminals he disrupted in the first movie could be coming back with a vengeance of their own. The team-up of Guy Ritchie and Jason Statham worked as a winning combination for most critics. The movie received largely positive reviews and still sits at 68% for critics on Rotten Tomatoes, but 90% for the popcorn meter from general movie audiences. A large part of that score is the result of the movie's ending. The most common complaint for the movie, after all, is that the pacing is uneven. The story moves particularly slowly when the subplots take the audience away from Jason Statham's storyline before weaving all of those subplots back together for the ending. Screen Rant's own May Abdul-Baki noted that the pacing slowing right before the movie's end didn't detract from the finale. Abdul-Baki also calls the finale a ruthlessly dark and virulent final act, which the audience seems to certainly love. Wrath of Man might have a meandering story in parts, but its ending is a success. The film is less about flashy dialogue or fast-paced action and more about the stillness before the storm. Each character's internal conflict and each action's consequence is felt deeply. The film has a deliberate, controlled pace that allows the audience to slowly unravel the mystery behind H's character. The film doesn't throw every twist at you in one go. Instead, it strategically places revelations along the way, keeping the audience engaged and hungry for more. The stylistic choices also enhance the tension. Ritchie's use of tight close-ups and dark, muted lighting makes every scene feel claustrophobic, as though the audience is being drawn into H's world. The slow-burning nature of the film's plot means that when the action finally does kick in, it's even more intense. But even then, the action is not over the top or gratuitous. It's purposeful, it's meaningful, and it hits hard because it is earned. It's a film that demands patience from its audience, but that patience is rewarded with an emotionally charged experience. Ultimately, Wrath of Man is a film that combines action with deeper emotional exploration. It's a story about a man whose thirst for vengeance consumes him, but it's also about the choices we make when we're faced with darkness and loss. The film's serious tone and grounded approach, paired with its sharp, unpredictable direction, makes it an unforgettable ride. Whether you're a fan of high-intensity action films or stories that dive into the psyche of a broken man, Wrath of Man delivers on all fronts. It's a gripping, stylish thriller that will keep you on the edge of your seat until the very end. And once it's over, you'll be left thinking about it long after the credits roll. The production of Wrath of Man was as meticulous and calculated as the character Hell, with its filming locations playing an essential role in shaping the atmosphere of the movie. Most of the film was shot in and around Los Angeles, California, the perfect setting for a story that dives into the seedy underworld of crime, vengeance, and personal reckoning. The sprawling city, with its contrast of luxury and desolation, mirrors the inner turmoil of its protagonist H, creating a tangible connection between the setting and the story's dark themes. There's a palpable energy in these locations, and the gritty urban environment adds to the tension and immediacy of the film's unfolding events. However, the film wasn't confined to just one location. Several key scenes were filmed in other parts of the U.S., with certain portions of the story taking place in more industrial areas. One intriguing behind-the-scenes fact is the film's careful attention to detail when it comes to the look and feel of the armored truck world. From the vehicles themselves to the interior of the cash transport company's offices. The design and location choices reflect the grounded realism the filmmakers aim to achieve, focusing on the harsh realities of this criminal subculture. As for the budget, Wrath of Man was made with an estimated production budget of around $40 million. This budget allowed for a blend of high-quality action sequences and intense character-driven moments, and it also reflects the relatively smaller scale compared to other big-budget action films. Despite not having the massive budget of some Hollywood blockbusters, the filmmakers managed to stretch their resources to craft a film that feels both intimate and epic, balancing tension with explosive action. It's a perfect example of how a director's vision and efficient production can yield spectacular results, even without relying on an over-the-top budget. The visual style of Wrath of Man is where the film truly shines. The cinematography is sharp, sleek, and gritty, with every frame serving to amplify the story's intensity. The choice of cinematographer was essential here, and the film's visual language is unmistakable, with a deliberate focus on creating tension through composition. The scenes are often framed with a sense of confinement, which mirrors the suffocating emotions and the oppressive weight of revenge that Age is experiencing. The muted color palette, lots of dark blues, grays, and browns, enhances the somber mood of the story, with the occasional burst of light or color used to punctuate moments of action or revelation. The action sequences are intense, but they're not overly flashy. There's a grounded real-world quality to that. The violence in the film making each shootout or confrontation feel earned. The film avoids over-relying on CGI, focusing instead on practical effects and real-world stunts, which makes for a much more immersive experience. Although Wrath of Man wasn't shot in IMAX or 3D, the film's use of cinematography and practical effects achieves an immersive quality that draws the viewer into H's world. Every gunfight, every car chase, and every moment of tension feels larger than life, without the need for unnecessary bells and whistles. The production value and attention to detail speak for themselves, providing a realistic and thrilling cinematic experience. The challenges during the production of Wrath of Man were minimal compared to some larger-scale Hollywood projects, but every film has its hurdles. One of the most notable challenges was working under the constraints of the COVID-19 pandemic, which affected many productions worldwide. Filming schedules had to be adjusted, and strict health protocols were implemented to keep everyone safe while maintaining the integrity of the film. This naturally caused some delays, but the crew worked tirelessly to ensure that the vision for the film remained intact. In terms of controversies, the film did receive some discussion surrounding the violence depicted in the story. While the film doesn't shy away from intense action scenes and bloody confrontations, it's clear that the violence is part of the film's exploration of vengeance, not gratuitous spectacle. Some critics argued that the film's dark themes could be unsettling for certain viewers, but for many, it was a welcome return to a more grounded, action-oriented narrative. The film's careful handling of these elements was one of its strengths. There's a real purpose behind every fight, every gunshot, and every moment of tension. The production's ability to maintain a strong narrative focus, despite the challenging circumstances and outside pressures, is a testament to the strength of the filmmakers and the creative team behind Wrath of Man. The movie's understated style, efficient use of its budget, and carefully planned filming locations all come together to create an action thriller that feels authentic and gripping from start to finish. Every element, from the visual choices to the practical effects, helps build an experience that immerses the audience into a world of relentless pursuit, mystery, and the all-consuming drive for vengeance. And that at its core is what Wrath of Man is all about. An exploration of the consequences of a man who has nothing left to lose and the lengths he will go to make things right in his own twisted sense of justice. So, while the behind-the-scenes challenges may have been subtle, the end result speaks volumes about the dedication of everyone involved in bringing this story to life. When Wrath of Man dropped its first teaser, fans were immediately hit with a sense of mystery and tension that's as electrifying as the film's premise itself. The trailers for the movie masterfully set the tone, giving viewers just enough to reel them in without fully revealing the depths of the plot. From the first moments, it's clear that the movie isn't about mindless action, but about a brooding, intense man seeking something deeper, a quest for justice or revenge that fuels every frame. The tone is somber and heavy, perfectly matched by the cold, steely eyes of Jason Statham, who plays the enigmatic H. The trailers also do a brilliant job of showcasing the mysterious nature of H's character. He's a man who appears calm and collected on the surface, but there's a storm brewing beneath. This sense of ambiguity drives the intrigue in the trailers, hinting that H's motives aren't entirely clear at first. Fans couldn't help but speculate, wondering whether he's a former soldier, a vigilante, or just a man who's been through something devastating. Every snippet of the trailer builds on this mystery, creating a buzz of excitement around Statham's performance and the possibility that this is a different kind of action movie, one where emotional depth and vengeance collide in a gripping tale. The fans, especially those who have followed Statham's career in action films, were quick to react, and many were eager to see a more grounded, gritty role for the actor, who has become synonymous with high-octane action. Some even began to theorize the connections to his previous roles, wondering if this would be a spiritual successor to some of his most iconic characters. As the teasers and full trailers dropped, the hype only grew, with fans praising the dark aesthetic, the intense action sequences, and the promise of a complex, unpredictable story. There's an underlying sense of dread in every shot, making the trailers a perfect reflection of the film's overarching themes of vengeance and morality. Marketing for Wrath of Man capitalized on Statham's star power, while emphasizing the film's gritty, no-nonsense tone. The studio leaned into his established reputation as an action star, showcasing the film as a return to his roots, a tale that didn't rely on excessive CGI or flashy spectacle, but rather on raw emotion, complex characters, and taut storytelling. The film's marketing strategy made sure to highlight these elements, appealing not only to fans of traditional action films, but also to those looking for something with more substance. To keep the conversation going, the marketing campaign was also strategic in releasing interviews and behind-the-scenes footage. This gave fans a closer look at how the film was made, teasing the meticulous planning behind the fight sequences and Statham's immersion into the character of H. These glimpses of the action, paired with the stark visual style, gave audiences a sense of the film's commitment to realism and authenticity. There was no need for gimmicks or over-the-top promotional stunts. Instead, the focus was on building intrigue through the trailer's cryptic messaging, Statham's quiet intensity, and the film's promise of a emotional, pulse-pounding ride. This was a movie that didn't need to shout. It simply let its quiet menace speak for itself. As for the pre-release buzz, it was undeniable. Fans of the genre were quick to latch on to the potential for a high-stakes, character-driven thriller, and early reviews seemed to suggest that this was going to be a return to form for Statham, who had largely been seen in lighter fare in recent years. Critics were also excited by the involvement of Guy Ritchie, whose past work in films like Snatch and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels had garnered a cult following. However, some critics were cautious, wondering whether Ritchie's distinct style of humor and frenetic pacing could mesh with the more serious tone of the film. This raised questions about whether the film could maintain its intensity without veering into Ritchie's more trademarked flair for quirky dialogue and rapid-fire editing. A subtle controversy started brewing around the film's portrayal of violence. Some questioned the extent to which the movie would lean into its brutal action sequences and whether it would risk overshadowing the film's character. Depth. The film had the potential to walk a fine line between compelling action and excessive brutality, and the early trailers hinted that this balance would be key to its success. Fans were eager to see whether Wrath of Man would be more than just a standard action flick, hoping for a layered, complex narrative that would offer more than meets the eye. Despite these concerns, the early reaction to the trailers was overwhelmingly positive, with anticipation building as release dates neared. In essence, the marketing campaign surrounding Wrath of Man was all about keeping the audience hooked, playing on the mystery and raw intensity of the film, and giving just enough to ensure that fans would be left craving more. And with every new clip, behind-the-scenes tidbit, and reveal, the buzz surrounding the film only intensified, making it one of the most anticipated action films of. So with the trailer doing its job and building suspense, the marketing campaign ensuring the spotlight stayed firmly on the star power of Statham and the Todd no-nonsense story, and the early buzz firing up discussions across fan-worn communities. Wrath of Man was poised for a successful release, with audiences more than ready to dive into its dark, action-packed world. When we think about movies that mirror the tone and style of Wrath of Man, a few classics come to mind. Films that balance raw action with deep character exploration. The closest comparison would be John Wick 2014, which, much like Wrath of Man, delves into the world of vengeance with a protagonist who is both an unstoppable force and a person riddled with grief. Both films feature a central character who is incredibly skilled in combat, yet whose motivations are shrouded in mystery, leaving the audience to piece together their past as the story unfolds. But whereas John Wick builds its world with stylized action sequences and a highly choreographed approach to violence, Wrath of Man is more grounded, with a focus on gritty realism and a deliberate pacing that allows tension to simmer. Another comparison could be made with Heat, 1995 Michael Mann's crime epic that also focuses on a lone protagonist with a complex moral code navigating a world of crime and retribution. Like Al Pacino's that character in Heat, Statham's ancient Wrath of Man is a man of few words, yet when he speaks, his every word holds weight, underscoring the tragic complexity of his character. The film also shares thematic similarities with The Punisher, both in its exploration of vengeance and the emotional toll that violence takes on the soul. However, Wrath of Man isn't necessarily part of a larger cinematic universe or franchise. It stands on its own, offering a fresh take on the genre of action thrillers, though it does share thematic and narrative elements with films that have explored the darker side of human nature and the consequences of living a life fueled by revenge. In terms of inspiration, Wrath of Man draws from multiple sources, from classic revenge tales to modern crime dramas. One major influence is the French film London 2004, on which Wrath of Man is loosely based. The original French film's premise revolves around a mysterious armored truck driver who is hiding a secret past, which is similar to the setup of Wrath of Man Guy Ritchie, known for his intricate storytelling and ability to layer multiple narratives. Took the premise of Lanvoir and gave it his own unique spin, adding his trademark style of direction to create something that stands apart from the original. But beyond the obvious cinematic influences, Wrath of Man also feels like an homage to classic revenge literature. The timeless themes of loss, justice, and retribution have been explored in various forms throughout literature, from The Count of Monte Cristo to the works of Shakespeare, and the film taps into that rich vein of storytelling. Additionally, the film's stark, often brutal visual style and the gritty, no-holds-barred approach to its action sequences suggest an homage to No More films, those tales of morally ambiguous characters navigating murky worlds of crime and deceit. But what really sets Wrath of Man apart is its ability to fuse these influences with modern film techniques, creating a film that feels both fresh and timeless. The film takes a familiar revenge narrative and injects it with a level of depth and character study that makes it more than just a straightforward action movie. It's clear that Ritchie was inspired by the classic revenge narratives while crafting something that stands as an independent piece of filmmaking, pulling from the past while pushing the boundaries of what modern audiences expect from a thriller. The themes explored in Wrath of Man aren't just about action or suspense. They dive deep into the emotional toll of a life lived in the shadows of violence. The film asks tough questions about justice and retribution, and whether the cost of seeking vengeance is worth the price of one's soul. This exploration of morality and vengeance is at the core of many of the best revenge stories. Whether it's in the epic battles of ancient myth or the cold, calculated world of modern crime thrillers, Ritchie's version of this timeless tale set against a contemporary backdrop challenges the audience to question what it means to seek justice and whether it's possible to move past the darkness that consumes those who live by the sword. With all these influences, Wrath of Man doesn't just nod to past works, it builds on them, weaving a narrative that feels both rooted in the past and entirely of its time. It taps into the primal allure of revenge stories while asking deeper questions about morality, consequence, and the human condition, making it a standout in the action thriller genre. The buzz surrounding Wrath of Man isn't just confined to its explosive action sequences and unforgettable performances. It's also about the mysterious layers of the plot and the intriguing character arcs that have fans theorizing. One of the most popular fan theories revolves around the true identity of H, Jason Statham's enigmatic protagonist. Viewers have speculated that H isn't simply the man he appears to be. There's talk that he may have a much deeper connection to the criminal underworld, perhaps even linked to a larger conspiracy. Some fans have even gone so far as to suggest that H might be a former hitman or a person with a secret past driven by an intense desire for revenge after a tragic event in his life. This theory plays into the film's central theme of vengeance and raises questions about his motivations. Another intriguing theory comes from fans who believe that the film's narrative structure, with its multiple timelines and shifting perspectives, is a deliberate attempt to mislead the audience. Could it be that the film's non-linear storytelling is setting up a major twist or reveal in the final act? It's possible that the fragmented storytelling isn't just a stylistic choice, but also a way to keep the audience guessing, with fans speculating that the final reveal about H's character could be a game-changer. Some believe that the mysterious and shadowy figure that H pursues throughout the film might have a surprising connection to his past, and that the true antagonist of the movie is someone H has known for far longer than he realizes. Fans have also been keenly dissecting the film's subtle moments, searching for hidden Easter eggs and references that might tie into larger cinematic universes or deeper thematic meanings. One such theory revolves around the film's title itself, A Wrath of Man. Could this be a direct reference to the ancient literary tradition of wrath as a driving force in human behavior? Some viewers have drawn comparisons to works like Homer's Iliad, where rage and revenge are central to the narrative, suggesting that H's journey is more than just personal. It's part of a larger, almost mythic narrative of vengeance. There's also been talk about the film's symbolic use of numbers and dates, with fans pointing out how certain characters seem to be linked to specific times or events. The number 7, for instance, is referenced several times throughout the film, leading some to speculate that it might have a deeper, perhaps even religious or mythological significance. Could the number represent a countdown to a pivotal event? Or perhaps the 7 deadly sins in a modern-day context? Then, of course, there are those minor but fascinating Easter eggs that tie Wrath of Man to other Guy Ritchie films. Some fans have pointed out the recurring motif of a gentleman's code, a theme that has appeared in Ritchie's previous works like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch. Even though Wrath of the Man is a much darker and more serious film, there are subtle nods to Ritchie's signature style of blending sharp dialogue, tough characters, and unexpected plot twists. These references serve as a sort of Ritchie universe. Fans have been having a field day, spotting moments in the trailers and promotional materials that could potentially link Wrath of Man to these earlier works. Speculative questions abound when it comes to the fate of the characters. Will H's quest for vengeance be truly fulfilled, or will the toll of his journey end up consuming him? Will we, get to see any closure for the characters who help H along the way, like the tough-as-nails bulletproof driver, Bullet, or the loyal team of armored truck employees? Fans are eager to see if any of the supporting characters will make it out of the story alive, especially given the high stakes and bloody confrontations that seem to be in store. Will the film provide a definitive answer to the mystery of the armored truck heist and H's role in it? And what about the question of redemption? Can a man like H, who has been so consumed by anger and vengeance, find a way out of the cycle of violence he's caught in? These are the questions fans hope will be addressed in the movie, and they've created a fervor of anticipation that has kept them eagerly awaiting each new teaser and trailer. With each new clip released, fans pore over the details, analyzing every frame for clues and trying to predict the film's outcome. With so many unanswered questions and theories floating around, Wrath of Man has created a perfect storm for fan speculation. And it's clear that this is a film that will continue to spark conversation long after the credits roll. From the subtle Easter eggs to the big picture theories, there's no shortage of intrigue, and the buzz is only going to intensify as more details emerge. Whether it's the quest for vengeance, the mythic undertones, or the possibility of a major twist, there's something here for every type of fan to sink their teeth into. And with Guy Ritchie's trademark narrative style and complex characters, fans are already lining up to see how all of this will unfold on the big screen. As we dive deeper into the highly anticipated Wrath of Man, one of the most captivating aspects of the film lies in the theories circulating around its ending. Fans have been glued to every teaser and trailer, searching for clues that could shed light on how this intense, action-packed story will unfold. One of the most popular ending theories revolves around the idea of ultimate revenge. H, played by Jason Statham, is seemingly on a relentless mission to find the people who wronged him. As the movie builds toward its climax, many fans speculate that H will confront the masterminds behind the heinous act that set his entire journey into motion. However, there's a twist. Many expect to see H's quest for vengeance might not result in the satisfaction of a traditional revenge ending. Instead, some believe that the film will take a more tragic route with H's relentless pursuit, leading to his own destruction. Could the very thing he's chasing, his need for vengeance, become the thing that consumes him, leaving him with nothing but emptiness? Others believe that the ending will deliver a shocking twist, revealing that someone close to H is actually working against him, pulling strings from behind the scenes. Some fans have pointed to the film's complex narrative structure as a sign that the final act will reveal a deep, unexpected betrayal, and that the real antagonist is someone we haven't fully suspected yet. These theories only add to the excitement as the layers of mystery and deception continue to build throughout the film. Then there's the speculation surrounding the character of Bullet, portrayed by the talented actor Hole McCow. Fans are intrigued by the dynamic between Bullet and H, with many expecting a major reveal involving Bullet's true allegiance or backstory. Could Bullet be someone with a hidden agenda? Someone who will play a crucial role in the film's conclusion? Or perhaps Bullet's loyalty will be tested in a life or death situation, forcing him to choose sides in a way that fans don't expect. Whatever the case, the uncertainty surrounding Bullet's character only adds to the suspense surrounding the movie's final moments. As the plot inches toward its inevitable conclusion, fans are also wondering whether there's room for a sequel or even a franchise within the world that Wrath of Man has set up. The film has already proven to be a hit with audiences, and there's a definite buzz surrounding the potential for expanding the story further. Could H's journey continue in future installments, perhaps with him taking on even greater challenges and facing more dangerous adversaries? Some fans have speculated that Wrath of Man could become the first film in a larger franchise, with potential spin-offs exploring the backgrounds of other key characters like Bullet or the mysterious figures involved in the heist. The universe of Wrath of Man is filled with rich, unexplored territory that could easily be mined for future stories, especially considering the film's intricate world of crime, vengeance, and betrayal. Many viewers have pointed out that the ending of Wrath of Man leaves the door wide open for a sequel, especially if the story wraps up with certain questions still lingering. Perhaps H's saga is just beginning, and the film's conclusion could set the stage for a deeper dive into his character and his quest for justice. There are also theories that the film's final scenes might introduce new characters or unresolved plot points that could form the foundation for a follow-up movie. If Wrath of Man continues to perform well at the box office and generates the kind of buzz that many expect, it's very possible that a sequel could be on the horizon, whether it takes the form of a direct continuation or an expansion into a broader cinematic universe, fans are eager to see how the story could evolve. The film's success could lead to an exploration of different angles within the same crime world with potential spin-offs diving into the personal stories of other characters who have crossed paths with H. Beyond sequels, Wrath of Man also has the potential to expand into other forms of media. Could there be a television series based on the film? With its rich world building and complex characters, a show that delves deeper into the criminal underworld could be a natural next step. Or perhaps we could see a graphic novel series exploring the backstory of H and Wrath, the world he inhabits, offering fans a chance to experience more of the gritty, action-packed story in a new format. In one conclusion, Wrath of Man not only leaves audiences on the edge of their seats with its unpredictable twists and turns, but also opens up a world of possibilities for future stories, sequels, and spin-offs. Whether it's through an explosive finale that wraps everything up neatly, or an ending that sparks even more questions, the film is set to continue its legacy as a gripping action thriller, the buzz surrounding potential sequels in the evolving story. Line keeps fans invested and excited for what comes next, ensuring that Wrath of Man won't just be a one-off hit, but a cornerstone of a thrilling cinematic universe waiting to unfold. Wrath of Man has quickly captured the attention of moviegoers thanks to its gripping story, intense action, and Jason Statham's powerhouse performance. But who exactly is this movie aimed at? The film's primary audience seems to be fans of action-packed thrillers, especially those who enjoy the high-octane energy and emotional intensity that a Statham-led film delivers. With its hard-hitting action, gritty realism, and revenge-fueled storyline, the movie is perfectly suited for fans of films like The Transporter and The Equalizer. Films that cater to an adult audience looking for not just fast-paced action, but complex characters with deep motivations. Statham's long-standing reputation as an action star only solidifies his appeal to a demographic that loves films where men take on powerful adversaries in both physical and mental confrontations. But it's not just the typical action junkies who are drawn to Wrath of Man. The movie also reaches a broader audience that's interested in crime dramas, psychological thrillers, and stories with intricate plots. There's an undeniable undercurrent of mystery that runs throughout the film, attracting viewers who enjoy trying to piece together clues, decode hidden motives, and predict where the story is heading. The film's exploration of loyalty, betrayal, and moral ambiguity resonates with anyone who enjoys stories where the lines between good and evil aren't clearly defined. However, with its dark themes and heavy violence, Wrath of Man definitely targets a mature audience. That being said, it's clear that the movie has its share of controversies that have sparked debates among fans and critics alike. One potential controversy that surrounds the film is its portrayal of masculinity and revenge. Critics and some viewers have pointed out the almost excessive violence, with some even questioning whether the film's underlying message is one that glorifies retribution. While some see this as a raw, unapologetic look at the consequences of vengeance, others argue that the film may be unintentionally reinforcing toxic masculine ideals. With the world growing more aware of the dangers of glorifying revenge-driven narratives, Wrath of Man treads a fine line between compelling drama and problematic messaging. In addition, there's also been some buzz about the film's approach to its supporting characters, specifically the way certain characters are written or portrayed, as it has been pointed out that the female characters in particular do not have much agency in the narrative. This has prompted conversations about gender representation, with some questioning whether the film could have done more to balance its primarily male-driven storyline with stronger female roles. As for the critical reception, the early reviews for Wrath of Man have been somewhat mixed, but largely positive, especially when it comes to Statham's performance in the film's pacing. Many critics have praised the director Guy Ritchie's signature style, particularly the way he weaves intricate, non-linear storytelling into an action thriller format. Fans of Ritchie's earlier works such as Snatch and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels will find familiar elements in Wrath of Man, from the rapid-fire dialogue to the unpredictable plot twists. Statham's performance has also been widely regarded as one of his strongest, with many noting that he's more than just the action hero archetype here. He brings a raw vulnerability to his character that gives depth to the otherwise straightforward revenge plot. However, there's been some criticism about the film's pacing, with a few reviews highlighting that the slow build-up may alienate viewers expecting a more traditional action movie. Some critics have also mentioned that the film's shift in tone between action sequences and character-driven moments might feel jarring to some, as it doesn't always maintain the same level of intensity. Still, Wrath of Man has found favor with a portion of the critical community, particularly those who appreciate its complexity and its deliberate unfolding of mystery. There are also early reviews that praise the film's gritty realism and its ability to maintain suspense throughout, even in quieter moments. Some have gone as far as to compare it favorably to Heat and John Wick, films that have set the gold standard for modern action thrillers. This mixture of praise and critique is what you'd expect from a film that's ambitious, trying to balance commercial appeal with artistic intent. Overall, Wrath of Man has certainly struck a chord with its target audience, raising intriguing questions about revenge, loyalty, and the price of justice, while also sparking discussions about its deeper social implications. As the buzz continues to grow, one thing is clear: the movie is leaving a lasting impact, and fans will continue to debate its themes long after the credits roll. With its powerful performances, strong direction, and thrilling action sequences, it's a film that's sure to be dissected and discussed for years to come. As we dive deeper into Wrath of Man, let's take a closer look at its structure, dialogue, and the powerful conflict that drives the movie. The story arc of this high-stakes action thriller follows a non-linear narrative, but it's firmly rooted in the classic three-act structure with a twist that keeps the audience kissing at every turn. The film kicks off with a slow burn mystery, where the audience is introduced to the character of H, played by Jason Statham, a mysterious and cold figure who takes a job as a cash truck driver. It doesn't take long for the tension to build, and soon we are thrust into a world of betrayal, revenge, and moral ambiguity, where every character is hiding a secret and no one can be trusted. The first act sets the stage for H's transformation. We see him as a quiet, calculating man, seemingly indifferent to the dangerous world he stepped into. But as we move into the second act, the story begins to reveal layers of his true motivations, and the stakes become higher as the plot twists around him. The classic hero's journey is inverted here. H isn't the traditional hero looking to right a wrong. He's a man on a quest for vengeance, pushing past all boundaries of morality to achieve his goal. The shift in perspective challenges the audience's expectations, making it more difficult to determine if H is the hero, anti-hero, or even the villain of the story. The third act brings the ultimate confrontation, where all the pieces of the puzzle fall into place, and the resolution comes in a hard-hitting, explosive climax. Yet it's not a clean-cut victory. The conclusion of Wrath of Man raises questions about justice, vengeance, and the consequences of taking the law into one's own hands. Now let's talk about the memorable lines and moments in the film that stay with you long after you've seen it. In the trailers and promotional material, one of the most striking lines comes from Statham's character when he coldly declares, "I'm not here for your money, I'm here for revenge." It's a line that cuts to the core of the film's central theme, perfectly encapsulating the essence of the character and his motivations. This moment gives us a glimpse into the mind of a man who has lost everything and is willing to go to any lengths to make those responsible pay for their actions. It's this type of blunt, unflinching dialogue that makes Statham's portrayal so effective. He doesn't rely on flashy lines or over-the-top monologues. Instead, his character silence and succinct remarks carry far more weight than words ever could. The film thrives on this minimalist style of communication, allowing the tension to build without the need for unnecessary exposition. As we move into the conflict and resolution, the true strength of the film lies in the depth of the central struggle. The main conflict is rooted in revenge, a deeply personal one that drives H's every decision. After a devastating loss, he's determined to seek out the people responsible and make them pay for their actions. But the conflict isn't just about revenge in the traditional sense. It's about the choices we make in the pursuit of justice and whether those choices justify the cost they come with. Throughout the film, H's unrelenting quest for vengeance puts him at odds with both the criminals he's hunting and his own morality. As he gets closer to uncovering the truth, the lines between right and wrong blur, and the audience is left to question whether H's path is the right one, or whether he's simply descending into a darker abyss. The resolution is intense and satisfying, but it doesn't provide the clean, simple ending that many action films offer. Wrath of Man takes a more complex approach, with the final moments leaving viewers to reflect on the personal cost of revenge and whether justice can ever truly be achieved through violence. Hayes' journey is not one of triumph, but of survival, and the resolution feels like both a victory and a loss, forcing the audience to confront the idea that vengeance can only be a hollow pursuit. In the end, the conflict is resolved in a way that ties up the key plot points, but it doesn't offer a neat bow of closure. Instead, it leaves the audience questioning everything they've witnessed and forcing them to think critically about the consequences of the choices made throughout the film. Ultimately, Wrath of Man isn't just a revenge thriller. It's a study of human nature, of the cost of vengeance, and of the lines we're willing to cross when faced with personal loss. It's a film that's as emotionally complex as it is action-packed, and it leaves you thinking long after the credits roll. The seamless blend of compelling storytelling, intense action, and deep thematic exploration is what makes Wrath of Man stand out as a film that's more than just another run-of-the-mill action movie. It's a film that digs into the very heart of what drives us and the price we pay when we let our emotions dictate our actions. And now, diving even deeper into the vortex of intensity that is Wrath of Man, let's peel back the final layers and uncover the minds and machinery behind this cinematic beast. So, what's the official title? No gimmicks, no fluff. It's Wrath of Man. Short and sharp like the barrel of a gun, echoing vengeance and grit right in the name. It's not just a title, it's a promise. A declaration that what you're about to witness is not a tale of redemption or mercy, but of calculated fury. And when did this high-octane juggernaut hit theaters? May 7th. That was the day audiences got their first taste of cold-blooded justice, served in explosive doses. A post-pandemic punch of adrenaline right when the world was ready to escape. Genre-wise, this isn't your run-of-the-mill crime thriller. Wrath of Man stands at the crossroads of action, heist, and revenge, wrapped in a war-drenched crime saga with undertones of a modern Western. It's where bullets speak louder than words, and every glare is a threat waiting to detonate. And the man orchestrating this relentless ballet of brutality, none other than Guy Ritchie. Yes, that Guy Ritchie, the British mastermind who redefined the gangster flick with Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, stylized the streets with Snatch, and brought Sherlock Holmes back to life with a fist and a flourish. Ritchie doesn't direct movies. He crafts kinetic, character-driven puzzles where every piece bleeds style. And here he trades his usual wit for a colder, more calculated narrative. It's Ritchie like you've never seen him before. Restrained, razor-sharp, and deadly. Serious. Behind the curtain producing this brooding beast, you've got Miramax in the cockpit, a name synonymous with edgy, groundbreaking cinema. Miramax has built a legacy on risk and reward. They've helped push boundaries with Everything from Pulp Fiction to Kill Bill. And with Wrath of Man, they're flexing that same muscle, embracing a darker, more menacing edge of the action genre. As for the screenplay, this is where it gets spicy. Ritchie doesn't just direct, he co-writes too, alongside Ivan Atkinson and Martin Davies, his frequent collaborators who helped pin The Gentleman. These guys know how to construct dialogue that cuts like a blade and scenes that simmer with tension. But here's the twist. Wrath of Man is actually a remake inspired by the 2004 French film La Noire. But make no mistake, this version is its own animal. The script has been re-engineered, reloaded, and repurposed into a lean, mean storytelling machine. It's tight, it's brutal, it doesn't flinch. Every character is a cog in the machine, and every line drips with menace. You don't just watch Wrath of Man, you feel it in your bones, in your gut, in that primal part of your brain that responds to danger with fascination. So when you hit play, know this. You're stepping into a world built by titans of cinema, forged in fire and fury, where every scene dares you to look away, but you won't. Because Wrath of Man isn't just a film, it's a statement, and it hits like a sledgehammer. But what really fuels Wrath of Man, what drives it beyond the barrel-blazing action and the razor-sharp storytelling is the cast. The face is behind the fury, the soul's behind the slaughter. At the eye of this storm, standing like a monolith carved from granite, is Jason Statham. Not just starring commanding, he plays Patrick Hill, also known by the code name H. And he's not just the protagonist, he's the quiet force of nature around which this whole savage symphony revolves. Statham doesn't need a long monologue to own the screen. His silence screams. He's cold, calculated, and hauntingly precise. But here's the twist. This isn't the fast-talking, cocky Stith you might remember from Transporter or Fast and Furious. This is a version we haven't quite seen before. Stoic, broken, consumed by something dark, and that's something revenge. Vengeance with a pulse. Now, surrounding Statham is a powerhouse ensemble that doesn't just fill the frame, they ignite it. You've got Holt Mall, an absolute juggernaut of character acting, known for his work in Mindhunter, playing Bullet, a seemingly loyal co-worker at the cash truck company, with a layered agenda that unfolds like a snake shedding its skin. Jeffrey Donovan steps in as Jackson, a former military man turned heist ringleader leading a team of skilled, ruthless criminals. Donovan brings a disciplined edge to chaos, a soldier out of step with the world, but perfectly in rhythm with violence. Then there's Scott. Eastwood is Jan. Perhaps one of the most chilling surprises of the entire cast, Eastwood shatters his pretty boy mold here and delivers a villain so volatile, so cold-blooded, you'll feel a chill every time he walks into frame. He's the gay kind of character that makes your blood boil and your jaw clench because he's not just a bad guy, he's a snake with a smirk. In the supporting wings, you've got a treasure trove of talent. Josh Hartnett brings tension and unpredictability as Boy Sweat Dave, adding a layer of anxiety to the armored truck crew. Andy Garcia makes a brief but unforgettable appearance as an FBI agent navigating the gray areas of justice. Then there's Nievelgar as Dana, a rare female presence in this testosterone-fueled world, bringing suspicion and attitude in every frame she occupies. But what makes this cast more than just a lineup of familiar faces is how each character feeds the machine of the plot, how they aren't just passengers in the story, but fuel for the fire. H, our shadowy lead, begins as a mystery. A new hire at Forco Security, quiet, intimidating, but eerily competent. The crew doesn't trust him. The audience doesn't know him. But slowly through flashbacks and fractured timelines, we learn the truth. H isn't who he says he is. He's not there for a job, he's there for blood. After the murder of his son during a botched armored truck robbery, Agent infiltrates the company to find those responsible and dismantle their world piece by piece. Every shift, every encounter, every single word is a thread in a larger web of retribution. Bullet, at first a mentor figure, turns out to be tangled in the very betrayal that changed H's life forever. Jan, the sociopath, is the one who pulled the trigger. And when these truths come to light, The movie doesn't just escalate, it erupts. Character arcs don't follow a neat trajectory. They spiral, they implode. They collide in ways you don't see coming. Loyalty turns to treachery. Brotherhood turns to bloodshed. Every relationship is tested under fire, literally. And by the end, you're not just watching who survives. You're watching who can live with what they've done, or if they even want to. This isn't just a story about good guys versus bad guys. It's about the gray in between. About men shaped by violence, consumed by purpose, driven by ghosts. And as the credits roll, you're left not just breathless from the action, but haunted by the path these characters walk to get there. Because in Wrath of Man, no one is innocent, and everyone pays a price. And just when you think you've grasped the weight of the characters, the depth of the performances, the gravitas of every stare and trigger pull, Wrath of Man grips you even tighter with a plot that unravels like a loaded weapon. Every scene cocked and ready to explode. At its core, this isn't just a revenge story. It's a puzzle box of motives, betrayal, and masked identities. The premise might seem straightforward at first. A quiet, enigmatic man named Patrick Hill, or H, joins an armored truck security company in Los Angeles after a recent heist on their convoy. Left 2 guards and an innocent bystander, his son, dead. But don't be fooled by the simplicity. The story unfolds across a fractured timeline, splintered into chapters that peel back layers of deception. We jump from the present to the past, from one perspective to another, piecing together who's behind the heist, who's sold out, who and what exactly H is willing to do to balance the scale of his grief. He's not a hero, he's not a villain, he's a bait. Force single-minded, driven by a need not just for justice, but for retribution so absolute it scorches everything in its path. And yes, spoilers are unavoidable when dissecting this masterpiece, because the big twist: H isn't just some grieving father. He's a high-ranking figure in an international crime syndicate, a kingpin with a code. And when his son is murdered during a robbery gone sideways, he doesn't call the cops. He declares, and war is exactly what he brings. The themes hit hard and cut deep. Grief, vengeance, justice, and the corruption of morality when faced with unbearable loss. Betrayal is everywhere, hidden. Beneath smiles, tucked inside locker rooms and truck cabs, whispered between supposed allies, there's a haunting meditation here on the cost of violence. The way it eats at a person's soul, hollows them out until all that's left is a shell walking the earth with a singular purpose: revenge. Loyalty gets tested, lines blur, and by the time the bullets fly in the final act, you're no longer sure who you want to survive. You just want to know how it ends. And where does all this go down? The setting is as much a character as the cast. The story unfolds across a sun-scorched, hard-edged Los Angeles. Urban sprawl fused with glassy downtown banks, desolate industrial yards, and fortified depots where armored trucks become steel coffins. The city feels lived-in, tense, coiled with anticipation. It's not the glossy cinematic LA of dreams. It's the underbelly, and the timeline very much modern day but timeless in its grit and atmosphere. You feel the heaviness of the past in every shot, the weight of decisions made long before the first scene even plays out, and the tone. Make no mistake, this is not your average guy Richie flick. Gone are the rapid-fire edits and quirky criminal banner. Instead, Wrath of Man is lean, mean, and ruthlessly serious. It's like Richie took all his signature style, drained it of color, and let the shadows take over. The result is a film that feels cold, methodical, and mercilessly efficient. Much like its protagonist, the action is grounded, brutal, and realistic. No over-the-top theatrics, no CGI. Distractions. Every gunfight has weight. Every death hits like a punch to the gut. And yet that unmistakable Richie precision is still there in the way the narrative folds in on itself, in the carefully choreographed chaos, in the rhythmic tension that builds with every cut. It's a revenge tale for the modern age, stripped down, remorseless, and gripping from the first frame to the last. So, when you step into the world of Wrath of Man, prepare to be pulled into a spiral of fury where justice isn't blind. It's got a loaded weapon and a list of names. And as the credits Roll, one question echoes louder than the final gunshot. How far would you go to avenge what's been taken from you? And just as the final pieces of the plot fall into place and the screen fades to black with the echo of gunfire still ringing in your ears, you start to wonder, where was this ferocious, blood-soaked ballet even filmed? How did the filmmakers build such a stark, unrelenting world that felt more like a battleground than a movie set? The answer takes us across the globe. Because while Wrath of Man is set in the unforgiving sprawl of Los Angeles, the magic happened thousands of miles away. Much of the film was shot in and around London, England, with certain scenes captured in Los Angeles to provide that authentic sun-scorched backdrop. But it's in the gritty urban locations of the UK, where most of the armored truck interiors and intense gunfights came to life. What's fascinating is how the production team managed to camouflage London's architecture to mimic LA's industrial district so seamlessly, blending transatlantic realism with a sharp cinematic eye. And speaking of production, let's talk numbers. The estimated budget, a cool $40 million. Now, by Hollywood standards, that's not blockbuster level. But here's the kicker. You'd never know it. Every dollar is up on that screen. From the loaded shootouts to the intense convoy ambushes, Wrath of Man feels far more expensive than it is. That's a testament to Guy Ritchie's directing prowess and a crew that squeezed every drop of value out of their resources like a bullet. Casing hitting concrete. Visually, the film is a masterclass in controlled chaos. The cinematography by Allen. Stewart is moody, muscular, and methodical. No shaky cam nonsense here. Each shot is composed with intent. The color palette is desaturated, nearly monochrome in tone, pushing you into a world devoid of warmth or hope. Shadows dominate. Faces are half-lit. Emotions buried beneath lines and glances. It's a visual language of mistrust and menace. And when the bullets start flying, the zap. Camera doesn't flinch. It lingers painfully, uncomfortably. You feel the danger. And no, this isn't a CGI fest or an IMAX spectacle. Wrath of Man trades spectacle for impact. There's no 3D gimmickry, no overblown digital wizardry. It's grounded, raw, physical. The kind of film where the action doesn't just entertain, it hurts. That said, the production wasn't without its challenges. Filming wrapped in early 2020, right before the world was plunged into chaos by the COVID-19 pandemic. While Wrath of Man was fortunate enough to complete principal photography just before the industry-wide shutdown, the pandemic delayed its release and added logistical headaches to post-production. Editing, scoring, and finalizing the film all had to be done under the shadow of lockdowns and remote workflows. Add to that the pressure of remaking a French cult classic, L'Envoir, and you've got a production walking a tightrope between homage and innovation. But somehow Ritchie and his team pulled it off. They didn't just translate the original, they reimagined it, injected it with a brooding pulse, and delivered something colder, fiercer, and infinitely more personal. And as the dust settled, the film emerged not just as another action flick, but as a dark meditation on loss, vengeance, and the corrosive power of purpose. So yes, the filming locations were clever. Budget was tight. The production was tested by a global crisis. But Wrath of Man didn't just survive. It thrived. It came out the other side harder, sharper, and ready to carve its place in the modern action canon. Because when you build a story this unforgiving in a world this real, it doesn't matter where you shoot or how much you spend. What matters is how you make your audience feel. And Wrath of Man, it leaves you stunned, scarred, and craving more. And if the finished film left your pulse pounding, it was the trailers, the first teasing glimpses into this world of shadows and bullets that lit the fuse. From the very first frame of that official trailer, Wrath of Man made one thing crystal clear. This wasn't going to be your typical heist thriller, the tone, cold, hard, relentless. The music, a deep rumbling score like a war drum beneath every cut. Jason Statham's voice over the footage like a storm gathering on the horizon, barely contained rage simmering beneath every word. No jokes, no levity, just menace. The trailer didn't just promise action, it dared you to enter this world. We saw armored Trucks rolling through claustrophobic alleys, masked gunmen swarming like a plague, and then Statham unmoving, watching, waiting, and when he strikes, it's quick, brutal, and surgical. The trailer revealed just enough to hook us. H isn't who he says he is. Someone close to him has been killed, and now he's infiltrating the system from the inside to exact revenge. It hinted at a layered story told out of order. Cryptic flashbacks, a mole within the team, and a storm of bullets on the horizon. Fans didn't just react, they exploded. Online. Forums lit up. YouTube comment sections became a battleground of hype. Is this Statham's Taken? Some wondered. This is Richie Unchained, others claimed. And they weren't wrong. The fan reaction wasn't just positive, it was feral. People who had grown weary of generic action trailers suddenly found themselves obsessively scrubbing through every frame of Wrath of Man's teaser, analyzing who the real villains might be, what Statham's backstory was, and how the whole brutal puzzle would unfold. And when it came to marketing, Miramax and United Artists releasing didn't go the bombastic route. There were no overblown theme park tie-ins, no cereal box QR codes, because that wouldn't suit a film like this. Instead, the campaign leaned into the mystery. Minimalist posters showed Statham's clenched fists or his steely eyes drenched in grayscale. Taglines like "Revenge is a deadly game" did all the talking. The marketing strategy was surgical, like the film itself. Social media campaigns focused on bite-sized character intros, behind-the-scenes clips featuring Guy Ritchie discussing his creative process, and gritty snippets of the film's most intense moments. Statham himself pushed the film on his Instagram with cryptic captions and stylized graphics, while fan-made content added fuel to the fire, poster redesigns, theory videos, and even custom trailers, cut in the style of Snatch or John Wick. But the brilliance of the campaign lay in what it didn't say. It left questions hanging in the air like smoke after a firefight. Who was H? Really? What happened to his son? Who betrayed him? It made you need to know. And that need turned into buzz, big buzz. Before release, insiders were already whispering that this was Ritchie's darkest work. Early screeners only added gasoline to the fire, with critics praising the unexpected restraint in Ritchie's direction and Statham's uncharacteristically cold performance. And of course, no pre-release build-up would be complete without a touch of controversy. Some questioned whether the film glamorized violence or revenge, especially in an era of rising social tensions. Others took issue with the portrayal of security forces and organized crime. But rather than hurt the film, this friction only added edge. Because Wrath of Man was never trying to be safe. It was never trying to comfort you. It wanted to challenge you, to drag you into a world where justice isn't clean and heroes don't smile. So by the time the film was ready to drop, audiences weren't just curious, they were hungry. Hungry for something meaner, leaner, more ruthless than the glossy blockbusters crowding the market. And Wrath of Man delivered it with a clenched jaw and a smoking gun, proving once and for all that when Guy Ritchie strips away the flash, what he's left with is pure, undiluted fire. ChatGPT said, and if you're sitting there, pull still racing trying to find something, anything to compare Wrath of Man to, you're not alone. This film doesn't just exist in isolation. It echoes, reflects, and refracts through a cinematic legacy of vengeance-fueled, morally gray anti-heroes and high-stakes underworld dramas, but with its own grim twist. The most immediate comparison many fans and TIFF critics made was to Heat, Michael Mann's iconic 1995 crime epic. Because like Heat, Wrath of Man dives headfirst into the psychology of men shaped by violence, the tactical choreography of urban shootouts, and the brutal consequences of lives lived by the gun. The way the action in Wrath of Man is shot, cold, wide, realistic, feels like a direct nod to Mann's uncompromising style. Then there's the town Ben Affleck's heist-heavy Boston set thriller, which shares Wrath of Man's focus on armored truck robberies, betrayal from within, and a protagonist caught between two worlds. For fans of John Wick, there's a spiritual parallel to not in neon-drenched gun fu, but in the portrayal of an almost mythic unstoppable figure cut from grief descending into the underworld to balance the scales. And yet Wrath of Man stands apart. It's not part of any cinematic universe or franchise, at least not officially, but it feels like it could be. Its world is so meticulously crafted, its characters so mysteriously rich that you can almost imagine spin-offs. The rise of H's criminal empire, the past lives of the armored truck crew, or even the shady origins of the inside men who sell out their own. There's a vast, grimy world under the surface, one begging for more. Stories. And make no mistake, this story didn't spring fully formed from nothing. Wrath of Man is at its core a reimagining of the 2004 French film London, released internationally as Cash. Truck, directed by Nicholas Bookreef. That film followed a similarly mysterious new hire at an armored truck company with a hidden agenda. But Ritchie didn't just translate it, he re-engineered it. He stripped it down, gave it muscle, drenched it in atmosphere, and spun it out in non-linear chapters with shifting perspectives and a colder, more operatic sense of tragedy. But the influences don't stop there. You can feel the weight of Nora. Cinema in every frame, the fatalism, the ambiguity, the absence of traditional heroes. There's a touch of Kurosawa's Yojimbo in the way H plays his enemies against each other, a sliver of the Punisher in his thirst for vengeance, and even a whiff of classic westerns, where a stranger rides into town, unsettling everyone with his silence and singular purpose. Thematically, it taps into the same veins as Taxi Driver or Old Boy, a man hollowed out by grief, spiraling into violence with a disturbing calm. And yet, for all those influences, Wrath of Man remains fiercely itself, Guy Ritchie's most sober, stripped-down piece of storytelling, yet devoid of his usual flair but overflowing with tension and tightly wound fury. It may be inspired by a foreign film, it may echo the greats, but it carves its own name into the stone wall of modern cinema with firepower, ferocity, and a commitment to tone so intense you feel like you've lived through the war by the time the credits roll. And if it leaves you wanting more, wondering what came before and what might come after, well, that's no accident. It's the kind of film that plants seeds in your imagination long after the final shot. And maybe that's the biggest homage of all, not just to the films that came before, but to the power of storytelling itself. Stories where men don't just fight to survive, they fight to matter, to avenge, to leave a mark on a world that's already forgotten them. And just when you think the story's been told, the credits have rolled, and the final bullet's been fired, the real fun begins. Because with a film as brooding and layered as Wrath of Man, it doesn't end on screen. It lives on in the minds of fans, theorists, and deep divers who've turned every line of dialogue, every flash of a mock tattoo, every silent glance into a breadcrumb on a conspiracy trail. The theory buzz surrounding Wrath of Man is electric, and it's no wonder Guy Ritchie's non-linear storytelling style, combined with the enigmatic nature of Lee. Statham's character has opened the floodgates to speculation. One of the most popular theories that isn't just a grieving father seeking revenge, but a high-ranking underworld kingpin tied to an even larger criminal enterprise. Some fans even believe that he orchestrated elements of the chaos himself, using the armored truck company as bait to smoke out his enemies. Others are convinced there's a deeper connection between H and the ex-military robbers, suggesting that one of them may have been a former associate or even an unwitting pawn in a much larger game. There's a whole faction of viewers convinced that H was once part of the same elite unit as the robbers, hinting at a betrayal that goes back years before the events of the film. And speaking of speculation, let's talk questions. Fans have been obsessed with one particular mystery. Who exactly was H before the tragedy? We know he's powerful, methodical, and deeply feared. But the film gives us only fragments. Is he ex-special forces, mob royalty, a hybrid of both? Another major question centers around the mysterious handler figure who helps H navigate the inner plan, workings of the armored truck company. Some believe he's a government agent, using H as a blunt instrument to clean up a criminal mess. Others think he's part of the same syndicate that H once led, another ghost from a violent past. But the theories don't stop there. There's talk about the final scene, specifically the way it ends, quiet and unresolved. Fans are reading into the subtle details, the lack of police response, the way certain characters disappear from the narrative without explanation, and the lingering silence that suggests H's mission isn't over. Just paused. Could a sequel or spin-off already be seated within these moments? Some say yes, and then come the Easter eggs, those tiny cinematic winks that only the sharpest eyes catch. One that fans have pounced on is the name Forico. Security, an obvious stand-in for the company in the original French film The Convoyeur. But it goes deeper. In one scene, the employee break room has a bulletin board covered in notes, one of which mentions Langley, possibly, referencing the CIA, fueling theories that H's past might be tied to intelligence work. Another Easter egg, a brief glimpse of a security footage timestamp, dated November 12th, which some believe is a reference to Guy Ritchie's own birthday, while others are convinced it marks the day his life changed forever. There are also subtle callbacks to Ritchie's previous films, names, visual motifs, and even editing rhythms that feel like spiritual nods to Revolver and Sherlock Holmes, suggesting a deeper cinematic web only the most devoted fans can decode. Even the film, structure broken into titled chapters, has sparked theories that we're not seeing the full picture, that hidden within the nonlinear timeline are clues to a larger unseen narrative thread. Some say there's a missing chapter. Others believe the order of the film was meant to obscure a larger twist. All of this, every theory, every question, every blink and you'll miss it, detail feeds into the storm of obsession that Wrath of Man has unleashed. Not just because it's thrilling, not just because it's brutal, but because it respects the audience enough to let them wonder, to let them dig, to let them build meaning from silence, from shadows, from scars left unexplained. And in that way, Wrath of Man becomes more than a movie. It becomes a puzzle, a myth, a story that never truly ends because the theories keep it alive. But of course, all the breadcrumbs, all the theories, all the Easter eggs, they eventually converge into the question that's been haunting fans since the first trailer dropped and even more after the credits rolled. How does it all end? And the fascinating part is, despite the film having already been released, Wrath of Man continues to stir debate among its most dedicated viewers who dissect every frame for alternate meanings, layered conclusions, and yes, possible setups for what might come next. One of the most compelling theories surrounding the film's ending suggests that H doesn't actually find peace after his final act of vengeance. While the movie closes on what appears to be the climax of his bloody retribution, sharp-eyed fans argue that the ending is intentionally ambiguous, portraying not triumph, but a hollow victory. H may have avenged his son, but he has lost his identity, his humanity, and perhaps even his future, setting up a thematic resonance that leans more into Greek tragedy than conventional action finale. Others believe the ending we see is only one perspective in a multi-layered narrative that others' characters' points of view, which were withheld, might reveal that H's rampage caused unintended consequences, perhaps, even setting off a larger chain reaction in the criminal underworld. And then there's the wild card theory that H himself dies off-screen, that the final moments are a psychological dreamscape, a mental projection of what he wished he could do. A theory fueled by the film's heavy use of nonlinear storytelling and eerie stillness in its closing shots. But what makes all these ending theories even more tantalizing is their connection to the second big question fans have been obsessed with. Will there be a sequel? Is Wrath of Man the start of something bigger or just a standalone? Symphony of Vengeance. The buzz around potential sequels has only grown since the film's release, especially with Jason Statham's continued collaboration with Guy Ritchie. The two are working together on multiple upcoming projects, and fans believe one of them might secretly be a spiritual successor to Wrath of Man. There's even talk in Hollywood circles, though nothing officially confirmed, about a possible prequel exploring H's mysterious past before the events of the movie, potentially diving deep into the criminal empire he once ruled, or the military operations that shaped his icy demeanor. Spin-offs, too, are a hot topic with characters like Bullet or even members of the ex-military crew. There's rich material for side stories, especially considering the morally gray world Ritchie crafted. A universe where loyalty shifts like sand and revenge is never truly satisfied. Some fans theorize that a sequel could pivot genres entirely, shifting from a revenge thriller to a Catamist psychological game where H becomes the hunted rather than the hunter, facing the consequences of the storm he unleashed. The potential for franchise building is massive, not just because of the characters, but because of the world itself. Realistic, corrupt, violent, yet eerily grounded. A world where money, vengeance, and power constantly realign, offering endless narrative possibilities. If anything, the film's brutal restraint and cold detachment feel like a prologue, a promise that the real war is yet to come. And knowing Guy Ritchie's penchant for surprising his audience, for circling back with bigger, bolder strokes, fans are watching, waiting, and theorizing. Because whether or not Wrath of Man gets a sequel in name and spirit, it has already planted the seeds of a cinematic universe. And that, perhaps, is the film's most cunning move of all. It doesn't just end. It lingers. It broods. It makes you need more, even as it dares you to move on. And the moment you try to categorize Wrath of Man into a tidy box, you realize that's exactly what it refuses to be. Its fan base is as layered as the film itself, anchored by loyal Jason Statham aficionados who have followed his career from the gritty streets of Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels to the adrenaline-fueled madness of The Transporter and The Expendables. But Wrath of Man draws more than just the action-hungry crowd. This film speaks to lovers of crime thrillers, fans of heist dramas, and aficionados of complex narratives laced with moral ambiguity. It's a magnet for those who appreciate the slow burn of a revenge story told with surgical precision and icy restraint. The demographic pull is wide, ranging from older audiences who grew up on 90s action classics to younger viewers hooked on high-stakes, non-linear storytelling like Breaking Bad or Narcos. And then there's the Guy Ritchie faithful, those who tracked his journey from the hyper-stylized underworld antics of Snatch to the mainstream blockbusters like Sherlock Holmes. They come for his signature style, his razor-sharp dialogue, and the undercurrent of grit that lingers in every shot. But no film this bold escapes the storm of controversy, and Wrath of Man had its share. Some critics pointed to the film's intense focus on violence and vengeance, arguing that its morally gray protagonist sends a dangerous message about vigilante justice. There were also murmurs about the casting. A few industry voices raised eyebrows at the film's limited female representation and its portrayal of certain character archetypes that felt like throwbacks to a bygone era of cinema. Others found political undertones in the depiction of ex-military characters turning to crime, that sparking debate about how veterans are portrayed in Hollywood narratives. These discussions didn't derail the film's momentum, but they added layers to the discourse, fueling conversation and further solidifying Wrath of Man as more than just a popcorn thriller. It became a point of discussion, a flashpoint for critique, and a film that demanded audiences ask tough questions. And what about the critics? Early reception was a roller coaster of hot takes and heated praise. While some reviewers were caught off guard by the film's cold, almost clinical tone so different from Ritchie's previous kinetic romps, many applauded the directorial shift, hailing it as a bold reinvention. Critics like Peter D. Bruges of Variety lauded the film's controlled brutality and unexpected emotional depth, while others emphasized how Ritchie's matured style allowed Statham to deliver one of his most nuanced performances to date. The film wasn't trying to be charming or funny or whimsical. It was trying to wound to scar, and many critics admired that. Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic scores hovered in the respectable middle zone. reflecting a divide between those who wanted the old Ritchie back and those who embraced his new persona as a storyteller of darker, colder crime tales. Fans, on the other hand, were louder in their praise. Online forums lit up with glowing testimonials. YouTube reactions buzzed with excitement, and letterboxd reviews piled high with 5-star takes praising everything from the film's haunting score to its masterful cinematography. Wrath of Man didn't just impress, it shook people. It split opinions, it made them argue, that theorize, reevaluate, and in doing so, it earned something that's even more powerful than universal acclaim. It earns staying power. Because when a film divides and provokes and sparks conversations long after the final frame, that's when you know you've struck gold. That's when you know you've carved your name into the cinematic landscape. And now we pull back the curtain even further, diving headfirst into the very skeleton of Wrath of Man, its structure, its soul, and the razor-sharp engine that powers its narrative momentum. Unlike the traditional 3-act structure we've come to expect in standard Hollywood fare, Wrath of Man bends that format with brutal elegance, operating more like a 4-act descent into darkness, broken into distinct chapters, each peeling back a new layer of character, motivation, and revelation. The first act lulls us into a familiar rhythm. A mysterious man named H joins a cash truck company after a robbery gone wrong. The second act punches us with revelation after revelation, cracking open H's brutal backstory and the loss of his son in a gangland hit, recontextualizing everything we thought we knew. The third act pulls back to show us the criminal crew responsible, injecting the story with a moral duality that muddies the waters between villain and anti-hero. And the fourth, it's the storm, the eruption of vengeance and strategy, colliding in a tense, methodical final showdown that rewrites the rules of a typical action climax. And layered throughout this symphony of carnage is dialogue so sharp it could slit throats. "You boys think you're the kings of the jungle," H mutters in a moment so cold it chills the marrow. A line pulled straight from the trailer, but given 10 times more gravity when delivered in context. That's what Guy Ritchie does best. He builds dialogue that pulses with meaning beyond its words, laced with menace, irony, and wit. One of the most chilling scenes occurs not in the heat of a gunfight, but in a quiet office where H's true identity is revealed in silence through the eyes of a man who realizes too late he's standing in the presence of death itself. No grand speech, just tension so thick it's suffocating. But at the bleeding heart of it all lies the conflict. A man robbed of his son, stripped of his humanity, and driven by a singular purpose, vengeance. And it's not cartoonish or over the top. It's cold, methodical, terrifying in its precision. H isn't a hero. He's a force of nature. The enemy, at least at first glance, is the ex-military crew turned robbers. But the more you watch, the more the lines blur. These aren't evil men in the traditional sense. They're soldiers, disillusioned, abandoned by a system they once served, now seeking a twisted form of justice through chaos. The resolution comes not with catharsis, but with a cold acceptance. H exacts his revenge. Yes, he hunts, corners, and executes those responsible. But there's no sense of relief, no victory fanfare, just silence. A man avenged yet still broken. The true tragedy of Wrath of Man is not that H wins. It's that the war inside him doesn't end, and it's that haunting lack of resolution, that sense of moral emptiness that makes this film so unforgettable. It lingers in your bones. It doesn't pat you on the back or tie a neat bow on its narrative. It stares you down and dares you to look away. That's not just storytelling. That's cinema with bite. That's Guy Ritchie at his most ruthless. And that's why Wrath of Man isn't just a film, it's a reckoning. When you first hear the name Wrath of Man, the mind races with anticipation. What is this movie? What kind of force of nature are we about to witness? Well, let's break it down. Wrath of Man is an action thriller that gripped audiences with its sleek, hard-hitting narrative. But what really sets this film apart isn't just its explosive sequences. It's the meticulous craftsmanship of director Guy Ritchie. Yes, Wrath of Man marks a stark departure from Ritchie's usual cheeky, fast-paced style of storytelling. Instead, we get a more somber, cold, and precise narrative. The movie blends the grit of crime thrillers with the intensity of revenge-driven action. The kind of film where every choice feels calculated, every moment weighted. But before we dive too deep into the plot, let's talk about the cast, because this is a movie that isn't just about the action, it's about the performances. The driving force of Wrath of Man is none other than Jason Statham, the unflinching star known for his roles in The Transporter, Crank, and The Expendables. In this film, Statham's portrayal of H, a mysterious, no-nonsense security guard with a hidden past, is as icy and composed as a man you don't want to mess with. But it's not just Statham who shines. The cast is a powerhouse of talent, including the likes of Jeffrey Donovan, who brings his cunning charm to what? The role of a former soldier turned criminal mastermind, and Scott Eastwood, adding his tough guy swagger to the mix. But who's pulling the strings in this world? Guy Ritchie, of course, known for his dazzling, fast-paced narratives in films like Snatch and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Ritchie's approach in Wrath of Man is something altogether different, a more brooding, deliberate take on the revenge thriller genre, marked by moments of intense violence and cold, calculated decisions. But the world of Wrath of Man wouldn't be complete without its setting, would it? The plot's driving force is H's journey into the violent, shadowy world of armored truck drivers, where the stakes are life and death, and every heist is as bloody as it is dangerous. The major theme here, revenge, loss, the emotional scars that drive men to take justice into their own hands. But there's more lurking beneath the surface. Wrath of Man asks questions about loyalty, morality, and the consequences of unchecked violence. The major conflict revolves around H's brutal pursuit of the criminals who destroyed his family, set against a backdrop of morally compromised characters whose personal motives blur the line between right and wrong. But let's move beyond the plot and dig into where this powerhouse of a film came to life. Wrath of Man was filmed in various locations, primarily in the sun-bleached streets of Los Angeles, adding a gritty urban realism that only serves to deepen the world Ritchie creates. The film's atmosphere is so meticulously crafted that every street corner, every dimly lit warehouse, feels like it's been plucked straight from the soul of a dark, unforgiving crime thriller. Beyond the cinematography, there's a rich undercurrent of behind-the-scenes trivia that'll make you appreciate the film even more. Did you know that Ritchie's decision to use more practical effects over CGI gives the film a grittier, more grounded feel, pulling audiences deeper into the action and making each gunfight and close combat sequence hit with real weight? Moving on to the trailers, Wrath of Man generated a wave of excitement among fans and critics alike. The promotional material promised a departure from the flashy, fast-paced action we've come to expect from Guy Ritchie. Fans were greeted by a more measured, tense tone, a glimpse of Statham's colder, more calculating character, and a promise of a deeper, more intense narrative. The trailer showcased scenes of unrelenting tension, giving fans a taste of what was to come. No over-the-top action, no slow motion, just raw, in-your-face violence. It's no surprise that early fan reactions were mixed, with some embracing the more nuanced approach, while others missed the sharp wood of Ritchie's earlier works. Yet, there was an undeniable buzz about the film's potential to bring back a kind of cinema that's been lost in the age of CGI-heavy blockbusters. Theories about Wrath of Man ran wild. Some fans speculated that the film's ending wouldn't just be about vengeance. It would delve into H's deeper psychology, exploring whether he could truly ever be free from his thirst for revenge or if it would consume him entirely. Others believed the film could be hinting at a larger criminal underworld, leading to spin-offs or sequels. Whatever the case, it was clear that the movie had everyone guessing. And then came the Easter eggs. Fans couldn't stop analyzing every frame, pointing out subtle nods to Ritchie's past films and little hidden details that tied into the broader themes of fate, retribution, and justice. There's something magnetic about watching a film like Wrath of Man, where every second seems filled with purpose, every image layered with meaning. But let's pause for a moment and ask, does this film fit into a larger Wrath of Man franchise? While the film isn't technically part of an existing series, its success has sparked plenty of speculation about the possibility of a franchise that builds on H's dark journey into the criminal world. Fans have wondered if we might see more of his backstory, or perhaps other characters from the film could spin off into their own stories. The film certainly sets the stage for something bigger, but only time will tell if it becomes the foundation for a larger series. Lastly, let's talk about the soundtrack, which, much like the film, stays away from bombastic scores in favor of something more atmospheric. The sparse, haunting melodies build a tension that matches the film's moody tone, perfectly accentuating the slow burn pace and the brutal violence that unfolds. It's a soundtrack that's meant to linger in your mind long after the credits roll, leaving you with that unsettling feeling that won't quite fade. From the sharp performances to the layered storytelling, from the gritty cinematography to the unflinching exploration of vengeance and loss, Wrath of Man is a film that doesn't just entertain, it leaves a mark. And whether you're a fan of Jason Statham's brutal action style, a lover of Guy Ritchie's layered narratives, or just someone who's looking for a film that goes deeper than the surface, Wrath of Man has something to offer. So sit back, buckle up, and get ready for a ride. That's as unforgiving as the characters within it. Let's take a deeper dive into Wrath of Man, the action thriller that has quickly grabbed the attention of movie lovers worldwide, and for good reason. The official title of the film, Wrath of Man, immediately sets the stage for something bold, dark, and powerful. It's not just a name, it's a promise, a warning, a prelude to a journey that will explore vengeance, violence, and what happens when a man pushed to the edge refuses to stop until his mission is complete. But when exactly will we get to witness this gripping tale unfold? Well, mark your calendars, because Wrath of Man was officially released on May 7th, bringing audiences into the thick of its heart-pounding action and unrelenting tension. And speaking of tension, what genre is this film exactly? Wrath of Man fits snugly within the action thriller category, but it transcends the typical expectations of that genre. It's gritty, it's dark, it's methodical, and it doesn't hold. While it has all the explosive moments you'd expect, it's far from a typical action film. It's a layered story of loss, revenge, and redemption, with moments that will make you think long after the credits roll. Now the mastermind behind this intense and calculated story is none other than Guy Ritchie, the British director known for his fast-paced, intricate storytelling style. From his breakout films like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels to the Sherlock Holmes franchise, Ritchie has built a reputation for blending action with sharp dialogue and a strong sense of style. With Wrath of Man, Ritchie takes a step into darker territory, dialing down the cheeky wit for a more somber, brooding atmosphere. He crafts a world that's as harsh as the characters inhabiting it, and that makes the film all the more immersive. Of course, a film of this magnitude doesn't just rely on one person. It's a collaboration of talents, and the producers behind Wrath of Man include Ivan Atkinson, Bill Block, and Guy Ritchie himself. Atkinson has worked with Ritchie on several projects, helping to craft the sharp, gritty world that has become synonymous with Ritchie's films. Bill Block, known for his work in action-heavy films like District 9, brings a high level of expertise when it comes to handling intense, character-driven action. Together, they create a production that has the perfect balance of style, substance, and raw energy. And when it comes to studio backing, Wrath of Man is under the banner of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer MGM, a legendary name in Hollywood known for producing some of the most iconic films ever made. MGM's involvement ensures a level of quality and attention to detail, and their distribution clout guarantees that Wrath of Man reaches the global stage where it can grab audiences from all corners of the world. Now, Who wrote the script that brings this compelling story to life? That honor goes to the talented Wrath of Man screenwriter Ma Davies, whose past works have shown a deep understanding of character and narrative complexity. He's no stranger to Ritchie's filmmaking style, having worked with him on previous films, bringing that same level of intensity to the screen. His script for Wrath of Man is tight, with each line packed with purpose, every scene dripping with tension. It's not just about the action, though. It's about the motivations behind it, the characters and the journeys they're all on. And that's where Men Davies shines, creating complex, engaging characters who are as multidimensional as the plot itself. So what do we know about the plot and themes of Wrath of Man? At its core, Wrath of Man follows a mysterious man named H, played by Jason Statham, who joins an armored truck company and, in doing so, becomes entangled in a series of heists and robberies that force him to confront his past and his hidden motives. But this is no ordinary revenge tale. The themes of loss, justice, and moral ambiguity run throughout, challenging the audience to consider the cost of vengeance and what happens when a person is pushed beyond the breaking point. H isn't just seeking justice for a crime. He's facing a personal reckoning, one that forces him to engage in violence in ways he never expected. The film's tone matches the darkness of its themes, with tension building at every corner, and the stakes are never anything less than life or death. And some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting, and if you like this video, please like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.